So, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this afternoon's edition of A Soldier's Story. As you know, we've been having this series of recorded interviews this year, and today is no different. I am Winston Sutherland, and I'm your host. And our guest today is none other than somebody who is very familiar to you on the World Connection, former ex-private Andrew Johnson. Like all the other people on the show, he has a fascinating story to tell, and I'm going to be asking him to tell that story. Once we have recorded this, I'm going to upload it to YouTube, and then I'll share it with Mr. President, Mr. JDF himself, and and then he will be able to air that on Sunday. And then once the interview is finished, Andrew will be available to us to answer more questions. There are lots of things which he will not talk about in the interview, but if you want to talk about them, then he will be available on Sunday to take those questions. So without more ado, I'm going to now ask our guest, Andrew Johnson, to introduce himself to everybody.
Okay, a story. Really, I'm not even sure if I have a story to tell, but it is
Oh,
what
you
it
do.
is. Okay, so here it goes. I was born 1961. In Victoria Jubilee Hospital. Back then, it was called Lion Inn Hospital. That was my entrance into the world. Between 1961 and run about the summer of 1969, my home residence was 19 Balcom Drive, Walter House, in the Olympic Garden area. And like I said, around about the summer of 69, my grandmama, because my grandmama raised me, she had me from I was about, as the story is told, about 6 weeks. And she was originally from St. James. So when she got up into, you could say she got up into age, she decided, look, I'm moving back to my hometown. I'm going back to the country. So
Okay.
she took me, and at the time she was raising four of us, me, a younger brother, and two sisters. So she took all four of us with her back to St. James, Cathedral St. James. I spent between the rest of my early childhood at developmental stage as a child, Cathedral St. James. I moved back to Kingston around about the time I turned 17. Whilst living in Cathedral, as far as my formal education, that's where I pretty much got my formal education. Like I said, my grandmama, she moved us with her from Kingston. Before we moved, I attended I attended St. Patrick Primary for about 3 years, between the age of 6 and the age of 9. Around about 9 was when I moved to Catadopa. I kind of moved around as far as primary school. I went from Catadopa Primary. I moved to St. Leonard Primary. Then I moved again from St. Leonard to Cambridge Primary, and I ended up moving again to Bickerstead Primary. And the reason for my moving, you know, during this time frame so many times was, in addition to my grandmama raising four of her grandkids, she was also raising her two daughters.
Right.
My Her two daughters, which were my aunt and my aunt Mary, we were closer in age as far as school, and she was
Mm.
she was somewhat prissy. So
Prissy.
she, yeah, so
What does
she,
that mean?
I mean, she was kind of, I guess you could say up to the pretty girl. You
Okay,
know?
okay, okay. All right, all right. Yeah,
So,
okay.
every time she'd get in she would get in trouble with a teacher and she didn't like the way she was getting treated, we were
Right.
changing schools.
All right. Just because of her.
Yeah. So we were changing schools. So after Biggest Step, I ended up with Anchovy
Right,
junior secondary. I didn't
right.
um I didn't finish Anchovy. I dropped out
Mm-hmm.
because at about that age when I started getting in up, becoming a senior in high school,
Mm-hmm.
in the secondary at the time, this was the time frame where, hey, I'm somewhat I'm somewhat looking at the ladies.
Mm-hmm. Okay. As you do. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so,
I know that age, yes.
so my grandmother at the time, she was like, look, boy, you're getting too big for your britches. You're going back to Kingston to go
Right,
be with your mother.
right.
So I moved back to Kingston. I still had about a year left in for
Mm,
school.
so,
But
mm.
I wasn't able to get into
So this is
any
about
school.
1975 or so.
1977 actually.
77. Okay.
Yeah, 1977. So
Mm-hmm.
when I moved back, I couldn't get into a school. So during the daytime, I would go hang out with this gentleman. He had and this was back in Waterhouse. He had
Mm-hmm.
a furniture factory.
Right.
So that's where I'd go and during the daytime, spend my days, trying to keep myself occupied, stay busy, stay
Mhm.
out of trouble.
Right.
And during that time frame, my aunt Mary,
Mm-hmm.
she was moving up in on the education ladder, so
Mm-hmm.
she applied to sit
Mm-hmm.
the JSC at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So when she put in her application, she also placed an application for me. So
Okay.
she got words to me, said, "Hey, these are the subjects that you're going to sit." I said, "Okay." I went and I sat. It was four subjects.
Right.
I was successful in two.
Right.
Okay, the following year, she uh, she set me up for some more. I
Okay.
went and I sat the exam again, and this time out of seven, I got five.
Okay.
So around about the same time, I forgot whether it was in the paper or it was word of mouth. I got
Mm-hmm.
word that the JDF, you know,
Mm-hmm.
they were doing a recruiting drive.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, I put an application for the JDF. I remember going down to the education ministry, getting copies of my certificates. I sent
Mm-hmm.
that off with my application letter.
Mm-hmm.
During the same time frame, I also had one for the Jamaica Constabulary. I had one for
Why not? Yeah.
the fire department.
Yes. Don't put all the eggs in one basket,
Yeah,
huh?
the first one that came through was that I got response from was the constabulary. So I went
Right.
down the Slipen Road. I didn't even make it past the height and weight.
All
And
right.
look, 5'6" and a half, you're too short. Get out of
Yeah.
here.
They don't do
so,
that anymore, I don't think. Yeah. The height thing is gone.
so I got a response back from the JDF. And I almost turned it down. I
Did you
almost,
know?
yeah, I almost turned it down. Like, man, one of my younger sister,
Uh-huh.
one of my young, I guess you could say she was still a baby because she was in school. And she pulled me to the side and she said, Big brother, no, no,
Right.
no, go do it and get out
Imagine
of
that.
here.
Imagine
So,
that.
yeah,
And you said you were back in Waterhouse now.
yes.
Right. Okay.
So I accepted the invitation. I showed up at our park, yeah,
Yeah.
Cotton Tree Gate, and I'm I'm smiling because it's I can remember the process. Yeah, I can remember the process. So we got to a cotton tree, the MP, they marched us down to the, the hangar.
Yes. Yeah.
Once we got there, we went through the first process. My memory served me correct was, you know, the height.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, excuse me, went through the height. You go there, you go there. So I was on the opposite side of the building.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was about 10 or 11 of us. So we asked the MP, what's the next process? And he was like, hey, you guys are too short.
God. Which you sort of knew before anyway.
But hey, this is the funny part now because, okay, too short, man. Hey, what are my other options?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So somehow we got to the MP and we literally begged for the work. I'm just gonna put it out there.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Hey, I will be honest with you. Hey,
Look,
I begged for the work.
there are
So
lots of people who pass through the JDF that way. You're not alone. I am sure I've heard many similar stories.
so he said, okay, you head back over there. And I was like,
All
yeah.
right, all right, all right, 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 yeah.
So the next step, we went inside the hangar to sit the test.
Mhm.
I sat the test. They took us to lunch.
Right,
Came back. We went over to 3GR barracks,
right.
and we waited. We waited, and I remember the first list of names that they came out and they announced. It was if you hear your name, you guys have failed so miserable, you need not apply.
God, yeah,
So I'm
yeah,
listening for my name, and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I wasn't amongst that bunch.
Whew.
That's okay. Then the second set they came out with the second list was you guys have failed, but you can reapply. I
Mhm.
forgot the time frame, but they could
Yeah,
reapply. That was the announcement.
yes,
The third time they came out, you guys have passed, and you need to be at this location on this date.
yes.
So they call names, and sure enough, Andrew Johnson was on it. So I'm like,
Praise God, yeah.
yeah, you know, I went home and I went through all the process. The final process was the day I find myself on the truck heading up to Newcastle.
Right. So when did you do the medical? Did you do the medical and at the same day you went to the air wing hangar?
No, we did the test, then we came back for first. It was two phased, two
Okay.
phased. Okay, we came back, and I remember we went to the medical center, and
Right.
then they sent us to down to Slipe Road.
Right. To give blood and all that. Yes.
Yeah, and then we went home, and then there was a final phase.
Mhm.
So that final phase, the message was, hey, you bring your bag and stuff because if you pass this
Going to-
final phase, you're not going home.
Right.
So,
Okay. Okay.
I
This is
came.
1977. You passed your recruit test, your test, and medical and everything, and you're heading to Newcastle.
No,
Keep going.
77 was when I moved back
77.
to Kingston.
Yes.
Okay. So
Right.
between 77 and 1980, 1980 was when I went to Newcastle.
All right. Okay. Right. Okay.
So I was on the truck going up, and I'm not gonna lie, I was scared out of my pants.
What are you scared of?
Well, you hear names before you get up there. You
Right.
know,
Okay. The
you hear
stories. Yes.
yeah, because in the Waterhouse community, there's quite a few soldiers from Waterhouse, and
Yes.
then
So I found
at
out.
that
Yes.
time, Waterhouse had a very active drum corps.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So you hear the stories.
Right. Okay.
So I heard about the animal Levine.
Yes. He was a
I
beast.
heard about Det Williams,
Uh-huh.
and then when I saw Bob Williams for the first time, this gentleman in uniform, he had his neck scarfed on, very
Yeah.
Loctite. He was just sharp.
Yes. Very sharp, and he always had his scarf on. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and everything about him say war fighter.
Yeah. Yeah. That's Bob. Yeah. Yeah. No. No. You have described him well. Yes. Yeah.
And he's not speaking, he's just looking at you.
Yeah.
Wow. But
Drive the fear of God into you, huh?
yeah, I got up to Newcastle. Mark Johnson was a training officer.
Yeah.
I believe at the time, Lieutenant Chambers
Mm-hmm.
was the admin officer.
Mm-hmm.
Colonel Douglas was the captain at the time.
And
he was the OC,
yeah. Yeah.
and
I remember that trio well. Yes.
and
They call there was a name for Mark Johnson. What was he? Redberry? What he had a
Red
name?
Barrett,
Yeah. Right.
and Sergeant Major. He just passed away recently. I forgot his name, but I believe his nickname was Cardite.
Call that Henry.
Yeah, Cardite Henry. He was a sergeant major. I had I had Eli Green as the platoon sergeant.
I think he passed away as well, didn't he?
Now, somebody said he's living in New Jersey.
All right. I don't know if I think I might have heard something. Yeah, I think I
I
heard something.
know Cardite passed away, but I'm not
Okay.
sure about
Right.
um, Eli
Right.
Green.
Right. Okay. So he's your platoon sergeant.
Yeah, and I had Ledford Rodney as as my squad instructor, and the other two squad instructor in the platoon was um, Corporal Levine and Corporal Jackson. So during the Newcastle phase, Looking back, like I said, training was hard, realistic,
Mhm.
um, and fun at the same time. Once I got over the 6 weeks,
Yes.
once I got over 6 weeks, it was pretty much okay downhill because the pressure wasn't as intense.
Mhm. Okay.
So after 6 weeks, it was pretty much smooth sailing for me.
Okay.
I passed out. It was the 30th or 31st of August, 1980. We ran down Monday morning. When I when I joined the regiment, the Monday we got to Blackberry Barracks. Charlie Company was on operation at
Mhm.
Tarrant High School. Our
And this is
Tarrant,
the height, we're in the
yeah,
height of the state of emergency at this point in time.
yes.
So you went
So
straight to Charlie Company.
I went straight to Charlie. The company lines was empty, so
Mhm.
we sat on a platoon veranda for about 5 hours until the ration truck came to pick up supplies, and
Okay.
they came and got us, took us to Tarrant.
So
We got
you come down as a young recruit, a young private soldier, and your first day you go out on operations at Tarrant.
I was at Tarrant on day one.
So you
Don't
didn't do continuation training then.
no.
You went because it was hot at that time, yeah. So
Yep, straight
you
from
got blooded right into the middle of state of emergency.
yep.
So did you? But you sort of knew that area, Tarrant. You would have been fairly familiar with the area.
I was. I
Yeah.
was.
So
I
that did
was.
help.
I was. So
Whoa.
when we got there, they gave us we got 4 days.
Mhm.
Okay, we got
Okay.
4 days. We got 4 days. They say, hey, you go home, see your folks,
And
see your
who was
family.
this OC at the time? 1980.
Uh,
That was Major
that was
Gardner.
Captain Thomas, Tufty Thomas,
Oh yes, Dr. Thomas. Yes, yes, that's
Tufty
right. Yeah,
Thomas, and
yeah.
DQ Spence was the
Yes,
company sergeant major,
right. He had just left Echo and gone to Charlie. Yes, yes, yeah.
and
What did you do with your 4 days?
but I went home, hang out with the family,
And of course, Waterhouse Balcom Drive, that area was very hot at the time
yeah,
as well.
yeah, yeah. So,
So did people know you as a soldier, realize you were a soldier, and what did they
well,
say? Or
well, most like where I lived, they knew
Hmm,
I had
right,
left for the military.
right,
But
okay,
when I came down on 6 week break, I went
right,
straight back. So people saw me
right.
coming in 6 week break in uniform and
Yes,
leaving in uniform.
right, right, okay.
So and I forgot how many officers we had at the time, but I remember only two. Um, Major Major Foster
Mm-hmm.
was
Cushy.
a lieutenant at the time, and
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Lieutenant McMahon.
Yes, I know that. Yes, that's correct. Yes, yeah.
So I believe that was pretty. I'm not. I can't remember for sure if Mr. Jordan was there or if
Right.
he came
Yes,
afterward.
after. It might have come a little after. Right. So you do your 4 days home and you go back now to Tarrant. What's happening at this time and how is that going
Well,
on?
my 4 days was over. I went back to to the command post.
Hmm.
Had my first patrol that Sunday night.
Right.
Lance Corporal Stewart.
All right.
He
Mhm.
was my my section 2IC, and he took me out. He took me out on my first patrol.
And which area did you patrol?
The same area I was born in the same area I lived.
So what was that like patrolling in an area in which you live in the Balcom Drive Waterhouse area? What was that like? And did you arrest or have to stop anybody? And how did that feel?
Well, I would probably say like on my first patrol, I was more mischievous than anything else.
Oh, are you
Okay.
serious?
I was more mischievous than anything because I was in uniform. Nobody has ever seen me before in my full
Yeah.
battle rattle. You
Yes.
know,
Right. Uh-huh.
so we moved into the area. It was a foot patrol, so
All right. Okay.
then it was a Sunday night, so
Uh-huh.
there was a party going on at this abandoned complex.
Yes.
They turned it in a dance hall.
Good. Yeah.
So, right at the intersection of Pennant Road and West Beer Farm Road. We had a patrol that stopped for a brief minute. We
Right.
somewhat took up some secure all-around defense position
Mhm.
where people coming down the street, they couldn't see us until,
They're right on top of you. Yeah.
yeah, until we let our presence be known.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I was right there, by the phone booth in the cut, and I would see people that I went to school with.
Oh
my
my gosh. Yeah.
my brother-in-law,
Hmm.
they were coming down, and I'm like, "Hey, come here, what? Where I come from?"
Yes. 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 Yes.
And then they would go through the entire shebang, and I'm like, "Hey, it's
Yeah.
me, Mitchie," and
My
they're like,
God.
"Mitchie."
So it
So
sounded like it was a happy patrol for you, that particular one.
it,
Yeah.
it was a happy patrol, but it was also about serious business.
Yes, of course. Yes, yes.
Because once we kind of moved from that little incident where I
Mhm.
was messing with people, we
Mm.
went back to taking care of real business.
Right, right,
So
right. Yeah.
patrolling the neighborhood, I never really had an issue because when I was in the neighborhood, I never abused or
There you
disrespect
go.
anyone.
Right. Yeah.
So hey, they knew, hey, if he messes with you, you did something out of the way. So
Right. Yes, yes,
I never had an issue. I lived there for about 6 years before I moved out.
yes. Right.
It
So,
was never a
so,
problem.
pardon?
It was never a problem, patrolling
Right,
my own
right.
neighborhood.
And so for the rest of 1980, you were pretty much, did you stay at Tarrant for the rest of it, or did you, how, working up to the election in October, what happened?
Well, I'm trying to remember if we were still in Kingston or we had moved to Moneega.
Right, even that is.
Yeah, we had did the rotation
Yes, I think what
because
happened, the battalion changed commanding officers about September or October. Sometime after the coup thing, the battalion changed commanding officer, and then I think we stayed in Kingston. No, we were in Kingston and we went to Monique later on. Yeah,
because
yeah,
during the actual election, we
yeah.
I believe Charlie Company was in Westmoreland.
Right, and right. So the battalion deployed from Monique to
Yeah.
Western Jamaica. That's right. Yes, you're quite correct. Yeah. Oh, so
So
you stopped working in Tarrant, came back into barracks, went to Monique, and then headed out to Westmoreland.
before we actually went to Manig, the
Mm.
command post had moved from
Tarrant.
Moved from Tarrant to right next to Beer Farm Villa on
Right.
doggone Beer Farm Road
Mhm.
in Waterhouse.
Right. Okay.
So
Right.
after that, we left and we went to Manique.
Right. Okay. So what was it like shifting now to the country? So you had lived in the country as a young boy for a couple of years, but then you had come back to Kingston and then going out to Westmoreland now for the election phase. What was that like?
Well, I mean, like, but you go back to me growing up. My best childhood memories are from living in the country.
Yeah, really.
That was
Let
my
me
best.
ask you this. When you went to the country, I'm going to come back to the election thing, but when you went to the country, what was the most surprising thing for you as a young Kingston boy going to live in the country? Because you didn't know anything about country before that.
Nope.
Right. You're laughing, so something happened there.
Man, I had to get used to the outside toilet.
Right.
You know,
Okay. Yeah.
I had to get used to taking my bath at the river.
Yes, yes, yes,
Get
yes.
used to it. I remember the day we arrived in Catadupa, it was raining.
Mhm.
So, man, I thought stepping out on the mud was just the most grimiest thing.
Yes, 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 yes.
Ah,
Did you go
so
down by train? Did you go down by train?
no, no, my
Because there was a station in Catadupa, but you
yes,
didn't go by train.
I didn't go by train. We didn't go by train, but we I had two trips on by the train with my grandmother before we actually moved.
Right.
On both times she went down to look at properties. I went
Okay.
with her.
Right. So you experienced the Kingston to St. James train stations.
Yeah, but the actual, the
Journey
actual
back.
move, journey
Yes.
back, you know, sometimes I think back about it. I'm like, damn, grandma took us to the country like Hagangut.
Really? What does that mean? You're on a truck? What did you go on?
And she had a truck, the gentleman, he was from Catadupa, so
Mm.
he brought his truck with the top and everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all the furniture was packed inside the truck, and then
Okay.
there was
All right.
the board at the back that made the bench. You
Yes.
know, so
Right.
how we moved from Kingston to Catadupa St. James, and we
That must have been a long trip at the back of a truck then.
it was, and what they left. It was an overnight journey.
All right.
It was an overnight journey because when we got to the house in St. James, it was about 7:30 Saturday morning.
Wow. Oh, wow.
So
And
we
this is your first, well, you've been to the country two times before, but you must have been in shock and you say all these different things that you had to get accustomed to.
it took me a while, but then I realized, hey, this is it.
Yes, this
This
is
is
where you're
not
going to be.
Kingston anymore.
Yeah, yeah,
you're not
yeah, yeah.
you're not the town mouse anymore. You're a country mouse.
Right. So now you have had the country experience and you're in the army and you're going out to Westmoreland to operate for the election period. What was it like operating out in Westmoreland?
I don't think there was like any major difference because you know I wasn't focused on
This is
land
country.
community. I was focused on the mission.
Right.
So yeah, there was sometimes you had that interaction with the folks that was different from
Mhm.
interacting with Kingstonians. You
Right.
know,
Yes.
besides that, wasn't
Right,
really,
right, right.
anything major.
And what do you recall of Election Day 1980?
When election in 1980, I was the one of the most significant event for me
Right,
because I was the only I was the only service member. Me and one police officer, and then at this time, because of the atmosphere, you didn't know if if this officer could be trusted.
is
You
that,
know,
yeah?
so
And you were what? You
that's,
were at a polling station?
well, we were at a spot in Little London.
Right.
Okay, and we operated out of Little London.
Mhm.
So I had a task to pick up the polling box in Negro.
Right. Okay.
That was my task, and I was the only soldier on this
Imagine that.
mission. Yeah, with one police officer. So I remember the first set of box that we picked up from the polling station, and they put it in the back of the pickup. I sat on it. I sat on the box and I lock and load. To let
Yes, yeah.
folks know, look, I'm all about business. So that was kind of the most significant thing
Yeah.
I experienced during the time frame in
Well,
that side of the country because
so okay, so the election is over and everything returns to calm, and you're now back in Kingston. What was so you're no longer a young soldier because you have operational experience, but when you walk back into Lafbert Barracks, people don't know you. They see you as a young soldier. What is it like transitioning back into life in barracks after the election?
I mean back then, shoot, looking back at that time frame, I will say it wasn't a very nice transition because
Right,
now this is where for me life kind of become difficult.
yes,
It became difficult based on where I grew up.
right,
So now there is no longer this mission urgency.
yes, exactly,
So,
yes.
people got time or folk got time to start thinking about other things.
Mhm.
So that's where for me, I guess you'd say my career or what it was at the time kind of take a more downward spiral.
And what happened that made it so? What happened that caused it to go down?
Well, when you know you knew the way you grew up, and you knew
Yeah,
you weren't affiliated with certain things,
yes,
or certain people, but just based on this is where I'm from.
right.
You know, if I'm from this neighborhood, I have to be affiliated with persons of unscrupulous character.
That's what people were sort of thinking.
Yeah, I got called I got called. It's ancient history, and
Mm.
I look back at it as it was it was me growing up.
Yes. Yeah.
Because even though I said that's where my career kind of take a downward spiral. I kind of have to accept some of the responsibility for that.
Right.
Because I could have handled things differently. I could have
Hmm.
not bought into, the stereotype.
Right.
Somebody say, hey, the boy Johnson, you saw him, yeah, I read, and I'm coming from
Yes.
I'm coming from the swimming pool. You
Yeah.
know, the boy
Right.
Johnson. Yeah, I read, boy, ganja, the boy, I go smoke it or something.
Right. So people just look at you, your eyes red. They don't think you could be. It never
Yeah,
occurred to them that you're just coming from the swimming pool. It's because you're involved in something else. Right.
yeah.
Yes. Right. Okay. So you're back in Kingston and you're going through this downward spiral, and you're not enjoying it at all. But one of the things I must ask you about, you would have gone through numerous transitions between Kingston and Monique. How did you handle that?
I mean, the only stressful thing about moving between Monique and Kingston was every 6 months you had to pack up.
Every 6 months you
Every
have to
six
park.
months you had to pack up. So the stress about okay. By the time you get settled,
You're back
here it
again.
is. You packing up to move
I
again.
don't think people can understand how stressful that was, who have
So
never done it. Yes. Yeah.
yeah, that was hell of a stressful.
It was stressful, man. Really, really awfully stressful. Yeah. And then you're dealing with with the downward part of your career. Nothing is going right for you and you have this stress. So I would imagine that you would say you didn't quite enjoy your life as a soldier then.
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say like the first 2 years.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, the first 2 years, like man, I probably should have stayed home. You know,
Right.
the
Yes.
times when okay, I don't even want to go to work, and it ended up where it got to a point where hey, I didn't even go to work.
Okay.
You
Go
know,
absent for a day or two.
yeah, I
How
didn't
many
even go
days
to
you,
work.
how many days pay you last overall?
Huh?
How many days pay you last overall?
Major, it's my story, and I'm gonna tell it. Okay.
Okay, okay, I give you.
It's my story.
All
I'm
right,
gonna
fine,
tell it.
stick to that then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 I just got up one day and I'm like, man, I'm not going over.
Right, right, yeah.
I stayed away for a couple of days, and even so, even you some of us mature faster than some,
Yes, yes, yeah,
and I
yeah.
guess for me because growing up, I didn't have that male figure in my life. Okay,
Right. Okay.
because I was
Do you know your father at all?
I do. I
Oh,
do.
okay,
I
okay.
do.
All right.
Me and my dad passed when I was 12.
Right. Okay.
But between prior to that, we I never lived in the same house with him because at the time I was my dad's bastard.
Right. Right. Right.
So I would see him when I go collect that maintenance money.
Right.
But
Right.
a few times we sat down to talk, have a one-on-one father son. I express how I feel. He,
Uh-huh.
he had good counseling, great counseling for me.
Yes. Right.
So
Right.
it wasn't a if he was still around, things probably would have been better. But
Right.
the lack of at a young age
Mhm.
that positive male role model
Yes. Yeah.
probably played an important
Right.
path in how I reacted to certain things.
Right. Okay.
So I take I take responsibility for some of my actions because
Of
like I
course.
said,
Yes.
it could have I could have approached it differently, but I um I went absent and I came back and like I said, somebody was constantly watching over me
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because I went absent for a couple of days. I'm not even gonna tell the number, but I was absent. But when I came back, When I came back, there was no absentee report.
Or the sergeant didn't miss you?
Nobody missed me.
What?
Yep.
Are you serious?
Hey, nobody missed me. And even
Never
even
heard
that,
anything like that before.
hey, look, Major, even that was it was a lesson was been given to me
Wow.
because later on in life when I came into my own leadership role, I was like, hey, you don't play with accountability.
You don't play. That's a really great point.
You
Yeah.
don't play around with accountability,
Mhm.
And it was recently I told a story because even one of my closest JDF bought when I was telling the story, he was like, damn, Bartagas, you went absent,
Yeah.
you know, or you got 7 days at the break. And yeah, that was, early part of my career. So the first, I would say probably about the first two years was kind of rough.
Mhm.
It was kind of rough, and then I got my wake up call.
Mhm. What was
I
that?
got my wake up call because I had to go see Colonel Armsby.
Yes, right. He took over 1 year in middle of 1980. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I had to
And
go
he's
see.
he's passed on now as well, I think.
Yeah, just recently.
Yes, right. Yeah.
So I had to go see Colonel Armsby. I went in. Before I went in, I said to myself, hey, well, you're wrong, you should come out of people that walk.
Of course. Yeah.
So I went in there, you know, and I remember telling him, I said, sir, I'm just here to take my punishment.
That's what you said.
Yeah, I
Wow.
said, sir, I'm just here to take my punishment. And he probed and he probed and hey, you gotta have a reason why.
He
You
wants to
know,
know why.
you gotta have a reason why.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He spoke with his list. You know,
Yes, yes.
you just
Yeah.
come
Yeah,
in here
Baba.
to tell me,
Yeah.
and
Can't just come in here to tell me you come to take a punishment.
yeah, yeah. So, and I'm like, what do I do? Well, I'm like, okay. I came up with a story, half truth. There was some
Right.
truth to it, but I came up with a story. It was embellished a little bit
As we do.
because I was I know I got to take my punishment, but I try to get out of it at the same time.
Yes, yes,
So
yeah.
I gave him my story, and he looked at me and he said, Private Johnson, I understand where you're coming from, and I applaud the fact that you're trying to do better for yourself. You
Hmm.
know, words to that effect.
Yes, words to that
And,
effect.
and then he said, anyway, put yourself in my shoe.
Hmm.
You know, I'm Private Johnson, and you're Colonel Armstrong. What would you do?
Yes, he used to do that a bit.
And
Yeah.
he stumped me with that one because I didn't have a response. I didn't
Yeah.
have a response. So I looked at him and I said, sir, hey, well, yeah, look at that punishment.
Okay, so you're asking him to go light.
Yes. So he said, all right, Johnson, give him some punishment, 7 days detention. And
Wow. Yeah.
Stumpy Lynch marched me out. Stewie, my first Section 2 ICN, the individual that took me on my first patrol was
Yes.
the individual that was taking my belt and my boot lace.
Yes. Right.
double timed me off to the
Red
caboose.
fence. Yes,
So
yes.
during red fence, I guess you could say I had time to think.
To think, yes. And
Uh,
what was the outcome of that thinking in red fence? Did it what changed as a result of going to red fence?
man, when I came out, man, I was like, it was my whole thought process had changed. I was okay. Damn sticks and stones, man. They said it might break bone, but whatever
Mm.
that that proverbs is. I said
Yes.
you can't let just words get to you.
Hmm.
I said, but hey, shape up and fly right.
Shape up, shape up. Right, right.
So I said to myself, hey, that's behind me. That's water on my back. I'm gonna let it roll off. I'm not even gonna worry about it anymore. And I move forward from that, and I think I not think I know, you know, I somewhat became a better soldier because
Soldier.
my issue was not being a soldier or you know taking care of soldier duties as in your task and your battle drills and stuff. My issue was right
Right,
here.
right.
So
Yes. Yeah.
once I had that figured out, I like,
Hmm.
hey,
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't change, how people. It probably did because
Hmm.
things slowed down a little bit. I
Yes.
did notice that.
Right.
Um, I was still, I was labeled that as a character, but I was doing things, looking back, I was doing things, that some days I'm like, damn boy,
Hmm.
you knew the work.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Because as a private, I took a patrol out on the street of Kingston twice
As a private,
as a private.
they were short of NCOs or something.
They were short of one time they were short of NCO, and the other time I don't know what happened to the NCO. I'm not sure if he was
Hmm.
sick or but there was no NCO. I showed up. I
Right.
went in. I report patrol to the duty officer, and I got the paperwork.
All right. Isn't that
yeah,
interesting?
yeah.
Yes.
I took out two mobile patrol, one with Willis,
Hmm.
and the other one that I took out, and this one, you know, every time I remember, I like, you know,
What
because,
happened? Why you remember it?
because when I reported for the patrol and I got the patrol document, the V-150 showed up, and
Right.
I don't remember his name, but he was he was Indian sergeant. I
Oh,
don't
Jack
remember.
Narine? Jack Narine?
No, it wasn't Jack. It wasn't Jack Noreen. Jack Noreen
Yeah.
was long gone. It
All
wasn't
right.
Jack Noreen.
Yes, you're right. You're correct. Yes, correct, correct. So Indian Sergeant. Yeah, that's
Right.
stumping me. Yeah.
When he when the vehicle showed up,
Hmm.
I got I went to the vehicle and I said to him, Sergeant, Big Sergeant, where we going? And he said to me, hey, we go wherever you want to go. You the patrol commander.
Exactly.
I'm just the car commander. So
That's funny. So you had forgot what the duty officer had told you.
yeah, so,
That's really funny.
that was a feel good moment because
It
sometimes
must have been.
huh?
That must have been, yeah.
Yeah, it was a feel good moment. And as a private again, also I did
Yeah, yeah.
about two or three guard mounts.
Yes, yeah. All right. Yes, one jar was really short of people in those days. Really, really short.
You know, I showed up. We were so short that the
Yeah.
corporal and the lance corporal was staying back at Port Royal or Port
Several
Anderson.
times. And
Yeah,
in fact,
so
you are right. I remember that time because it was so short that they had to break up Alpha Company to supplement the other three companies.
yeah.
That is right. That is about, yes, you are right. You are very, very right. Yeah.
And you know, we show up on the square. I'm like, no corporal.
Yeah. So your job has to be
Yeah,
done. So you go. Yeah.
yeah, my time to shine. So I stepped up
Right.
and looking back, I had 'cause, I don't ask for things. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I listen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I remember Billy Jenkins, one
Yeah.
of the was one of the duty sergeant
Mm-hmm.
and one of the guard mounts that I did. And
Yes.
there was another one that I did was Bully Cardinal
Holy God of blessed
was,
memory. Yes.
was the sergeant. So fast forward a couple months later, maybe a year later,
Yeah.
the battalion had did a junior NCO Carter
Right.
in 1GR, and the Charlie Company soldier, and a good friend of mine too. The
Mm-hmm.
Charlie Company soldier that was selected, he wasn't doing so well.
Right.
And I would have my buddy, Buddy Roots,
Mm.
rest in peace. He'd come down, Badagesh. Billy Jenkins, I realized where the shot man, where look a shot man there. Why them never send a look a shot man pancada? So
Why did I
well,
call you Border Gash anyway?
that's well, I I had a friend of mine, a civilian friend, okay, and he embellished the story a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, there's supposedly a rumor, you know, and it's a rumor.
That's a rumor. Okay.
It's a rumor. He was like, "Hey, I got, I had a way with the ladies.
All right. Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
he was
Mhm.
supposed to have a way with the ladies, and he started calling me ball of fire,
All right. Okay. Ball of fire. Mm.
ball of fire." Then my siblings got hold of it,
Mm-hmm.
and they were still going to school.
Mm-hmm.
Stepmom was overseas.
Yes.
Stepmom was overseas. I was the eldest brother that had a job. So, you know,
Yeah.
whenever I could, I
Mm-hmm.
pitched in. If they need lunch
Yes.
money, they got it.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then
Yes.
my one of my younger brother, he was going to Kingston St. Andrew Tech at the time,
Mm.
and he was you know musically inclined, so they say.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So he decided, okay, to raise school fee and all that stuff, he's gonna throw a party.
Right.
So they put up the flyers with his name, Echo Richard from St. Andrew Tech, and in the middle
Mm-hmm.
of the flyer, they put
Mm-hmm.
Badagas the soldier.
Okay.
So all over that area, Kingston 11, there was this party poster with Badagas as a soldier. So everybody in the community, who is Badagas? Who's Badagas?
Right. Right.
And then patrols on the street, they saw the flyer. And it got back to camp that
Yes, of course. Yeah.
John from Charlie was this Badagas.
Oh gosh, yeah, more trouble, huh? Yeah.
And that was where it started, and I
And
couldn't get rid of it. So I thought, okay, it's what it is.
this is what it is. And that, I suppose that affected being promoted and all that.
No,
Okay. Okay.
no,
So you did you did what, 8 years?
I did 8 years.
And what prompted you to leave?
Well, my my girlfriend at the time,
Hmm.
her family migrated.
Right.
So when she migrated out, like sure, you know, maybe I need to go see if my 2IC will pick up the slack. but but
Okay.
she wasn't having that.
Yeah.
She wasn't having that. So about a year, 12 months after she came up, she came
You
back and
decided to.
yeah, then she came back. Well, I guess you could say I got an ultimatum. Say, hey, I'm coming.
Either
This
or
is
you're not.
what it is. So
Right. Okay.
she came down. We got married. She filed a petition for me. By this time, I was close to 6 years.
Right.
You know, and the documents were submitted.
Hmm.
And like I said, I was close to right at about 6 years.
Right.
I started. I re-enlisted for 12 months, and after that, I was just doing 6 months until my
Until right.
documents were finalized, and that was what prompted that.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to come back to what happened after you left the JDF in a minute. And so you've left and you've decided to go abroad and you're working on that. But is there any one thing that you would like to say that you learned most in the JDF? What was the thing that you learned most, or was it the best lesson you learned in the JDF?
There was not even I can't even say narrow it down to any one thing.
One.
I would
Mm-hmm.
say this because there were so many things,
Mm-hmm.
because when I came into my own and I'm starting to look back, there's things that came natural to me. That's okay. Where did I learn that before? Where did I see that
Yes.
before? And
Right. Right. Right.
that was where I got it. So
Mm.
I mean, to me, one of the most important thing is, man, coming out of JDF was you pay attention to detail and you listen.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Sometimes we don't do enough of that. You know, and it's not always about you.
Yep.
It's not always about self.
Not always about. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not always about self. It's a team sport, and
Mm-hmm.
you treat people, the way you want to be treated. You want to be treated with respect and dignity. That is how
Yes.
you treat people. And like I say
Right.
again, take time to listen because some of the most valuable lessons that I've gotten was just
Mm-hmm.
by listening.
Absolutely. Yes.
By
Yes.
listening, you know.
Okay.
And
Mm-hmm.
I will always echo these names, Bumpy Rogers,
Mm-hmm.
Billy Jenkins, and Buster Foot,
Mm-hmm.
Deba Davis, Dorothy Murray, and Donnie Ross. And and I'm gonna mention this too.
Who was the last person you said there?
Donnie Ross.
Oh, right. Okay. Right. Yes. Yes. Mhm. Corporal Ross. I remember he was a corporal. That's what I remember him as. Yes. Right.
Because like in the case of like let's say Bumpy Rogers, for instance, I remember when Bumpy first came to Charlie.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember when he first came to Charlie. He came from the provost unit,
Right.
And being, I was labeled a character. I was like, God damn,
Mhm.
what provost marshal I get now
Mhm.
for a sergeant major? But I listen, I listen to him when he speaks, man.
Yeah.
And one of the most important things that I've ever heard anybody said was this phrase right here. I heard it from Bumpy, and I heard it again later on in life. You know, in a different phrase, differently.
Mhm.
But Bumpy Rogers, I heard him said one afternoon. He said, "There's no such thing as a bad soldier."
Right.
He said, "There's no such thing as a bad soldier. You have soldiers that need guidance."
Now, I'm going to stop you there because funny you should say that because we have something in common here. Bumpy Rogers was my first platoon sergeant in Echo Company. And I remember when we were doing the annual evaluation of soldiers. Each year you had to do the soldiers' annual evaluation. And I remember him saying similar words to me. There's no such thing as a bad soldier. So that is something which I recall. He was the very first person who mentored me as my platoon sergeant in 1JR back in Echo Company. And there you go. All those years later, he comes back as the warrant officer in Charlie Company. And he says the same thing to you. Isn't that
Well,
amazing?
he was Bumpy's a hell of a guy, man.
Hell of a guy, hell of a guy, hell
Hell
of
of
a
a
guy.
guy
Yes.
because when he came to Charlie, it's like the switch went in the opposite direction.
And
The
he had
switch.
this march. He could just sort of glide along like he was walking on water.
Man, when we first saw him, we used to peep out the window and like, hey, look, he ain't even walking. He ain't even walking. I remember my friend Sammy Davis saying, "Boy, Botagers, look, Sammy is just glide above the earth." And
That is what we all thought, yes.
yeah, and me, the way I think, I'm like, man look like a Rottweiler dog. and then the barking start. You
Yes,
know,
yes,
you
yeah.
mentioned earlier about when you was a young officer coming up the stretch.
Yes, the Gaza Strip. Yeah.
Yeah, when he was coming up, all you would hear, whoof, whoof, whoof. He um he has a figurine.
Mhm.
He has a figurine, and he said he still has it.
All right.
Well, we were on guard duty at KPH,
Mhm.
and there was this lady was walking by. She was selling little dog figurines. And she and
All
she
right.
and she came by and said, "Soldier, buy something from me now." I said, "Lady, well, how much for it?" He said, "Well, I have all the money, And I remember
Uh,
calling a couple of my battle buddies, Murray, this other guy, I forgot his name, we should call him Chick Charles, Drucker
mhm.
the Edwards. And we all, we pulled the money together. And the lady, we were talking mad smack to. I
Mhm.
remember somebody said, "Hey, I wonder how much pick me up." Because the dog had a chain with three little puppies. I was like, "Hey, we're not even care how much you have, I feed them." So we bought it, we got off duty that Saturday, and we set it on his desk.
Is that so? Imagine that.
We set it on his desk.
And that was supposed to be a prank, right?
It was. Hey, we call your dog. Hey, this is you and Ollie and picked it up.
So what did he think about that?
Well, I remember he didn't say anything. He
Did
didn't
right.
say anything because he knew when the barking start,
Yeah.
it was him. It was
It was
directed
him.
towards him. And
Right, right.
we actually found out that he actually knew. I think it was Mousy Chambers went to complain
Right.
because we used to squeak when Lieutenant Chambers walked by.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Squeak, squeak, squeak. So
No, you guys were terrorists, man. You guys were terrorists, man.
So he went to Sergeant Major, and Sergeant Major, your soldiers are calling me Mousy. They squeak every time I pass by. And Bumps looked at him and said, "Sir, you know them call me. I dog them call me." So but I believe he took it in good stride because I
Right.
remember the clerk one day. The clerk went in there to clean up the desk. He make an attempt to move it, and
Let's leave it.
he ripped Bailey a new one. He said, what y'all touch it for?"
Yeah, exactly.
And it stayed there when he went on to become the drill.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
took it with him. It was on his desk when he was a drill sergeant. When I left, I spoke to years back, when I kind of got in contact with Murray. I like, "Murray, hey, you ask your dog if him still have the figure." And he said he still has it.
Imagine
Said he
that.
still has it. Still has it.
If I get to
So,
talk to him, I must ask him.
yeah, so for me, Bumpy Rogers, hey, anybody else can say what they want to say about Bumpy.
Yeah.
Bumpy to me is one of the best leadership that I had when
Wow.
I was in JDF, and I wish I had that at
Earlier
a
stage.
earlier stage.
Right. Imagine
You
that.
know,
Yes.
you
Yes.
know, it's a guy that he's giving you a lesson at the
Yeah.
same time he's threatening you with
Yes.
God.
Yeah, of course. The work must be done.
I remember, I remember. Okay, we had access to the barber shop.
It's
You know, so he came over. Hey, I need to get a ship up. So for some reason he came to my chair, and I was like, Sammy, I'm not the best guy to ship you up. They say, Baragash, you are ship me up today. And look, you know what got me if you F it up. And we say,
exactly.
all right, Sammy, I got you. So
Take your time and you fix them up. Yeah.
I take my time and I fix him up, and then I hand him the mirror and say, yes.
Yes. Looks good. Yeah.
And years later, thinking back, I'm like, ain't that something? Because he was teaching me attention to detail.
Attention to detail. Yes. Just like that.
Attention to
Yes.
detail. And at that time, I didn't see that.
You couldn't see that, could you? Yeah.
Yeah. So
All right.
there's another story I gotta tell this one because
Yeah. It's your
after
story. You tell. Yeah.
after he became the drill,
Yeah.
the drill had a responsibility to make sure the young officers were straight when it comes to drilling ceremony, especially when they're
Yes.
new to the battalion.
Yes.
And this particular time, he needed a detail for demonstration.
Mm-hmm.
So when the detail was over, everybody went to jail.
Crikey.
Everybody went to jail, and
Why?
I don't know. I guess they weren't performing to standards, you
Okay.
know.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I wasn't on the detail, and Body Roots again. Body Roots, hey, Body the drill same time, see if lock you up. So, so for about 3 weeks, I went on the cover. You
Man
know,
on the run again. You're like an
I
escaped
went
convict,
on
man.
the cover. I went on the cover, and when I finally when I finally had to go face them, I couldn't hide from them anymore. So
Not
if
you.
I go to
Yes.
jail today, I go to jail. So I was selected to do the old soldier speech at the Christmas dinner.
All right. Okay.
So I had to do a rehearsal
Yes.
uh, for the RSM.
Yeah.
So when I went up to do the rehearsal, I was the old soldier Richard Alexander was a young soldier.
Yes.
So we went up. RSM was out of the office. So I had to give my rehearsal to the drill. But prior to me going up to do the rehearsal, after I was selected to do the speech,
Yes.
I wrote my speech.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote my speech, and he had used a phrase. He had
Yeah.
used a phrase. I said, "Hey, boy, if this don't get you out of jail today, you go cook."
Yes.
So I incorporated my his phrase into my speech.
Okay.
So I went up, I rehearsed the speech, and he looked at me and said, "By the gosh, all four words them there." So we said, "Drill, your words, drill." I didn't say, "All right, go tighten up some more and come back." And
Yes. Fabulous.
hey,
Yeah.
I got out of going to jail.
Yes.
And
Yes. Yeah.
again, again, it was when I think back on that, it was a lesson.
Yes. Another
You
lesson.
know,
Yes. Yeah.
people was trying to he was trying to tell me something because if I was there, the the detail would have been to standards.
Yes. 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 Yeah.
So the fact that hey, Badagashi, know him as the doggone informer leader, people listen to him,
People
and
listen
I'm
to him.
not there
Yes.
when you see him
Yes.
lock him up. You know,
Yes.
yeah.
So tell me now. So you leave the JDF and you decide that you're going to migrate. What happens after you migrate? So we're switching now to your life after the JDF.
Well, I my last day on active duty was 24 April 1988, and
Okay.
I flew out. I flew out the 5th of May, the same
Oh,
year. So when I got to when I got to New York, right off the bat, I was used to making my own money.
yes.
So even for a short period of time, this idea of me having to rely on the missus, you
Yes. Yes.
that didn't sit well with me.
Hmm.
So I was beating the streets looking for work, and somebody be promising, and they said, you need a high school diploma. I didn't have any.
Hmm. Yeah. Drop
I
out,
was
as you
a
said.
high school dropout.
Yeah.
Can't find my JSC certificate. You
Yeah.
know, they wouldn't hold any weight anyway. So I was working construction.
Yes.
And,
Okay.
I was working on a gymnasium, on a building new gymnasium in Queens, York College. And just by listening, I heard they had a GED program, you
Right.
know,
Product.
general certificate of education, something like
Okay.
that. So I got myself into the program in the evening hours.
Hmm.
2 weeks into that program, they moved me out of the basic and switched me to the advanced program.
Okay.
About another 2 weeks, the facilitator he came to me and he said, "Hey, here's your date and here's your time frame, and this is the address that you need to go to take tests."
Mm.
So I was like, "Wow, man, I'm not even sure if I'm ready." But
Yes.
I got up, got on the train, went to Manhattan,
Hmm.
found the address, went inside. I sat the test. Uh, about 6, 8 weeks later, I got my certificate in the mail.
Wow. Right.
So when I got it, I remember, I didn't for about 3 or 4 days. I didn't say anything. I was still going to the program in the evening, and then I remember the facilitator. He said something to me one evening. I said I already took the test
Mhm.
because he was going to schedule me for a test. I said I
Yes.
already took the test. He said, "Oh, let me, bring your certificate."
Yes.
So when I took my certificate, he looked at it. He was like, "Wow," and why the wow?
Um,
He said to me, you scoring this high on subjects that you know Americans can't pass.
yes. 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 Yeah.
They have difficult to pass. Hey, those are some things that come
Mhm.
natural to me. I was a reader coming up, and he um he suggested I go see the director of the program.
Right.
I went to see her. She looked at my certificate and she said, "I'll get you a job right now if you want it."
All right.
Yeah, but the job she was offering me, I didn't want to do that job.
Yeah. What was it?
She, um, Department of Correction.
All right. No, I can see why you would want that. Yes.
And it was back then. I mean, it was good money.
Good money, but
Good money, and I thought about it like now, my luck. I'm gonna go there, get a job, and then I go inside the prison and I'm seeing a whole bunch of people from White House.
yeah, yeah. So you didn't
I
know
said,
that.
I said no. I said I keep pushing on the outside,
Yes. Yeah.
and it just so happened that my sister in law, her husband, had he graduated from basic training, graduated from his advanced course, and he was stationed in Germany.
Right.
And they were having some problems, so she had to go up to the recruiting station to
Right.
get some direction.
Right.
When she came back, she said, "Hey, Mitchie, the military is taking people
Right.
this month for the month of April with GED."
Right.
Really? So I went up there. I saw a recruiter. This is the recruiting station on Jamaica Avenue in Queens, New York. When I got in, I really didn't like the reception I got.
Mhm.
They basically like so. I went to another recruiting station. I went to a recruiting station in Larrington, Springfield Boulevard. Went in there,
Right.
and before I got there, I had made a phone call. So they were expecting me.
Mhm.
When I got there, the guy that I had spoken to on the phone, the recruiter, he wasn't there. So, but anyway, the recruiting business was a cutthroat business.
All right.
So when a recruiter, I said, "Hey, he's not here, but hey, you can talk to me." So he sat me down. He gave me the predictor test.
Right.
So as I was taking the test, I'm not very good at math.
Mm-hmm.
So if the test is 2 hours
Mm-hmm.
and it's maths and English, 40 minutes out of that is going to be on the math
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because I know I breezed through
The English.
the English lit.
Right.
So I only had like 10 minutes left when I was still on the map.
Oh
And he
God.
came over and he was like, "Hey, you're not going to make it." I kind of gave him the side eye. I was like, "Hey, you just don't know me." Because by this time I knew out of all the questions that I had answered, I had about 80% correct.
Right.
That I knew. So I switched to English and the next 10, 15 minutes, I just breezed through it.
It's true. Right.
By this time, and I believe it was destined to be this way.
Right.
Yes, by
Right.
this time, the guy I spoke to, he came in, a Puerto Rican guy, and he was
Right.
like, "Hey, Andrew, that's my prospect."
All
You know,
right.
so he graded the test and he said, "If you want, I could take you to Fort Totten right now. You can take the ASVAB."
Just like that.
Just like
Wow.
that. And that was a Friday. And I said, no, let me take a weekend and I'll take it Monday.
Yes.
So I went home the weekend and I spent a weekend brushing up on my math skill.
Yes. Yes.
I was if a book had math in it at this time, I didn't know that the study guide for the LSAT was for cats that they want to go to law school.
All right.
Oh, the LSAT had math in it. The GSAT had math in it. I was going through them books, so I did that the weekend. I Monday came picked me up, took me to Fort Totten. I took the
Yeah.
test. He took me home and said, "Hey, you know, we'll know later on when they send him the test scores, the results." So he called me up, man, and he said, "Hey, you're good." And
Wow.
I I I I didn't even understand the significance of my score until later on.
Yes. Yes.
Is once the score got graded and it was official,
Yeah.
and I went to the MEP station. The MEPS now is where you go and you start all your official paperwork,
Right. Yeah.
and you pick your jobs and. So when I got to the MEPS, based on my test score, I could pick any job I want.
All right.
I didn't have to have them, hey, this is what you're qualified for.
Right. Okay.
I
You could
was
decide.
qualified for any job that was available. The only job that had a showstopper was
Hmm.
those jobs that required you to be a citizen.
Right. Okay.
But if I
Right.
if I was a citizen, I could have
Yes.
had those jobs. So
So
and
what
on
did you
top
end up?
of
Go on.
on top of me being able to pick my job, I had I had every options. I had a bonus. I
Right.
had an Army college fund, and I
Nice.
also I also had an airborne school.
So what did you end up doing then?
I ended up because I said this on the platform. Growing up, I had a fear of electricity.
Right.
So initially, I looked at 19 series, which was a tanker.
Mhm.
So I'm like, wow, okay. Then I asked about infantry,
Mhm.
but then I was thinking, okay, I needed. I'm 28. I'm
Yeah.
28 years old. I needed something if I when I come back to the civilian street, it equates to a civilian occupation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then at 28, I was like, man, what the hell are you doing running around the bush being infantry? So I chose power generation equipment repair.
All right.
So, that was the skill set I chose. And I got signed up. I signed up. They didn't give me the bonus because my counselor told me. And if I had known and just say, hey, I'm not signing anything unless I get it,
Yeah.
I would have gotten the bonus. I got the job I wanted. I got the Army College Fund. I turned down airborne school because that was the same weekend that Bullet Cardinal had his accident.
Right.
So
Okay.
I turned down jump school because they told me, hey, even if you don't take it today, you could still get it later on, which wasn't true. It wasn't a true statement.
Yeah.
So that started the ball rolling. I shipped to Fort Dix, New Jersey. I did my basic training. After
Hmm.
Fort Dix, I shipped out to Fort Belvoir, Virginia. That's where I did my technical training.
Hmm.
Once I got certified, I shipped out to Germany.
Right.
Uh, 48 Maintenance Battalion, 48 Maintenance Company, 19 Maintenance Battalion, Wildflecken, Germany, training area.
So tell me this now. What was it like being in the U.S. Army?
Ah,
You've just left the JDF after 8 years, about a year between, and now you're in the U.S. Army. What was that like?
the 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 transition was a very easy transition
Okay, okay.
because I wasn't coming straight from the street. I was already trained.
You've fully,
So
yep, yep.
yeah, so all I was doing at this time during the transition phase was adapting to a new way of conducting business and probably adapting to new weapon system.
Right, right.
So once that was out of the way, it was like pretty much smooth sailing. I
Yes.
look back, I look back now and I said, man, that's the easiest job I ever had.
Because the JDF had set you up.
Yeah,
Imagine
yeah.
yeah, you're set up. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
That's no lying that statement because by this time I had matured, you know, all that bad attitude was out of
Yeah,
my
yeah.
system.
Oh, the system, right.
So here I was now, okay, my supervisor didn't have to tell me to do anything.
Wow,
Okay.
wow.
I showed up to the shop.
Mm-hmm.
I showed up to the shop. I put on my coverall. I
Mm-hmm.
changed to my work boots. I
Mm-hmm.
get my toolbox and I move out to the maintenance bay.
Right.
You know, I didn't hang around the shop office. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
I went out to the bay. If we didn't have a job in my shop,
Right,
I would walk over to the welding shop.
right.
I was like, "Hey, Keith, hey, teach me how to draw a couple beads, man."
I see what you mean. Yeah.
So I started learning to do other things.
So what type of equipment were you doing maintenance on?
My primary was just power generation. So
Right,
anything I was trained on and certified from a 1.5 kW, which is a very small generator, up to the 200 kW generator. That I was
right,
certified on, but I've worked on the 500 kW generator. So
right. Okay.
my primary was just power generation, but as the power generation guy, we were what the system classified as low
Mm-hmm.
density skill set. There's not 100 or 200,000 of us. It's a few.
Mm-hmm.
So you
Right,
get into an organization where okay, it's 150 personnel in this organization. You're going to have maybe one generator mechanic,
right.
and if
Okay.
the generators are not running, then you have no generator work.
Right, right,
So if it's a track unit, you go fix tanks.
right,
You know,
right, right, right,
if it's every unit has wheel vehicles, so you go fix wheel vehicle.
right. Okay, so
You
you
know,
you're able to work wherever the need is.
yes.
So you go to Germany, you start off in Germany. Where else did you get deployed to?
I when I went to Germany, um, Desert Storm kicked off while I was in Germany.
Right.
My unit was um was non-divisional unit
A what?
and a non-divisional. Okay,
Okay,
so
right.
we
Mm.
uh we fell upon the Fifth Corps, but we didn't belong to a division.
Right. Okay, right.
So
Understood.
we was just like out there. Now,
Right,
if
right.
the entire Corps had moved, we would have
You would move.
moved to the storm, but the Corps
Mm.
didn't move. The Corps sent bits and pieces.
Right.
So
Okay.
one of the major piece from Germany that went was 3rd Infantry Division, and during the storm, we ended up backfilling shortage in
Right.
units
Okay.
that were going forward, and there wasn't a shortage for generator mechanics. So I spent I spent Desert Storm in Germany when I believed the seventh Corps was down in Nuremberg. When the Seventh Corps deployed, we had to go down there and take over the responsibility of the Seventh Corps Rear Detachment mission. So I spent the first 6 weeks
Mhm.
once the campaign started.
Mhm.
Once
Mhm.
the air campaign started, that's where I spent my time securing that community.
Okay.
Once I left Germany, I went to Fort Lewis, Washington.
Okay.
I went to a different platform. I went to Signal.
Right. All right. Okay.
Signal Battalion. This was when what we know now as cell phone
Mhm.
baby.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
So that was somewhat interesting because while I was there, the way that the equipment was set up, each what we call rat rigs, radio rigs,
Mhm.
each rig was a shelter that like sits on the back of a Humvee with its
Right.
own generator. So
Right.
if you had 50 Humvee, you had 50 generators.
Yes. Right.
Because once we rolled out to the training site to set up to do any kind of exercise, the generator powers everything.
Everything.
So
Yes. Right.
while I was there, my primary focus was on my generator equipment.
Right. Okay.
And while I was there, I got promoted to sergeant
Mhm.
while I was at Fort Lewis. And before I left Fort Lewis, I got recommended for promotion to staff sergeant.
Mhm.
When I got promoted to sergeant, I had less than 3 years time in the service.
Wow. Imagine that. And you did 8 years in the JDF and you didn't even make Lance Corporal. Isn't life funny? Imagine that.
Yeah, well,
Wow.
yeah. When I look back, man, even so, Major, man, the JDF set the foundation.
Yes. Yeah, that
JDF,
give it, yeah, yeah, yeah.
JDF sets one of a hell of a foundation. I remember
One, yeah,
a couple months ago, Punter had asked me, out of the blue, you know, out of the blue, he inboxed me and said, "By gosh, well, I'm proud of you, I'm proud of you." I'm said to myself, what wrong with this madman, yes, sir?
yeah, yeah,
So, hey, I said, look, I don't know what you heard, man, but blah blah blah.
yeah.
So, and his response was, "How it is that not a JDF, you let me say you are a character, and
And you come here.
you come across the pond, and
Yeah.
turn around, and you still have love for the JDF."
Can you imagine that? Yeah.
Because hey, regardless of that was where the foundation was set.
Yes. So
Any,
go on,
go ahead.
go on. Now I was gonna ask you what rank did you leave the US Army as?
I retired on my retirement certificate.
Mhm.
It says Master Sergeant.
Right.
On my retirement orders. It says First Sergeant.
All right.
So
And
and
a first sergeant is equivalent to what?
the First Sergeant and the Master Sergeant are the same as far as pay grade.
Right.
Okay, they're both enlisted grade E8, but
Mhm. Okay.
one
Oh, EH. Right. I know that term. Yeah.
one has more by virtue of position. One is senior to the other.
Right.
and one
Right.
has more responsibility.
Right.
So,
So you spend all this. How long did you spend in the U.S. Army then?
21 years and 16 days.
Crikey, that's a long time to. Yeah. So you in all you have almost 30 years of military service,
Almost.
and then you decided to retire because of what decide? Why did you decide to retire?
Well, when I first enlisted, the intent was only to do 4 years.
Okay.
That was
Yeah.
the intent because the intent was okay. Every time I go apply for a civilian job, it's
Yeah.
I get the same question: How many experience you have working in America? Which was
Right.
none. So
Right.
the intent was go get my 4 years of experience and get
Right.
out. But then I get to 3 years
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
3 months,
Yeah.
and I was already a sergeant.
A sergeant. Yes, you did
Getting
say.
ready, I was recommended for
Uh-huh.
promotion to staff sergeant.
Yeah.
So as I started going up,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, man, this doggone job is too easy. So hey, I'm gonna hang around a little bit. And then when you have a family, that makes a big difference.
Big difference. Yes.
Yeah,
And how
'cause
big is your family? What's your family like now?
back then I had wife and 2 kids.
Okay.
We had a third kid on my second tour in Germany.
Mm.
So the family at the time when I made the decision I'm going to stay, it was just me, the missus, and 2 kids.
Right. Okay. All right. Okay. Fabulous. So and then you've now left and put that behind you.
Well, the question you asked first, what made me decide to retire?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I um I came in to do 4. I
Mm-hmm.
said if I go past 4, I'm gonna give them a solid 20, hard
Oh,
charging, and if
right.
maybe a war or two.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when I got to 20, I had already done that.
So which was the war that you went into? You didn't do war, the Gulf
I
War. Which
didn't.
one of the
Uh, I
wars?
didn't. I didn't do the first Gulf. I did
Mhm.
the. I did the second Gulf.
And what was that like being in a real war, in a hot war? I mean, we did wars in Jamaica, but this is a different type of war. What was that like?
Well, shoot. Let me put it this way. For my entire career, that was what I trained for.
Yes,
You know,
right.
everything I did was battle focus training.
Yes,
You
right,
know, that was that was the entire focus. So
right.
by the time I got there, or my unit got there, we knew what our piece of the puzzle was.
Right. Yes.
We focused on that.
Right.
We
Right.
focused on the what if.
Yeah.
We knew it's a possibility that
Hmm.
we all might not make it home.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, so I went over there with that type of mentality. Hey, I'm battle focused. I trained for war, and I got orders. So I'm gonna go over there and I'm just gonna execute.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Prior before I left, I remember by this time I was a first sergeant. I remember
Yeah.
getting standing in front of my formation, and I said, look, I'm not I have no plans to be writing nobody's family member any letter.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
we
Yeah.
got a mission to take care of. We gonna go over there and we gonna knock it out the box. So we all got him coming back home.
And like you said earlier, you don't play with accountability.
Nope, nope. So we got over there. Hey, we got over there. We executed. We did the
Executed.
mission, and we came back.
All right. And that was the only sort of hot war that you were involved in.
that was the only one that was like on the money. I
Right.
had I had two rotations to Saudi Arabia, but
Okay.
that was more deterrence than
Yes.
an
Right.
engagement. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Fabulous. So you've served in two militaries, you've lived in two countries, and you're now retired. What are you doing with yourself these days?
I when I first retired, I took a job with the city of Augusta, Georgia.
Mm,
I stayed there for about 12 months. I resigned and then I went to Italy. I was in
mm,
Italy for about 16 or 18 months. Came
mm,
back. I moved to out in Tennessee.
mm,
I took a job out there with a garbage company. I didn't like it too much, so I gave that up.
mm.
And I moved to my current location, doggone Connecticut. And
Right. Right.
when I got here, and I'll say this, I consider myself lucky when it comes to like getting jobs after the military
Mm,
because
mm.
it was always somebody calling, So when I came out here, I got a job with Pitney Bowes as a tech. My plan
Right.
was to stay with Pitney Bowes until Social Security age.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was kind of like for what I wanted was to do the perfect job for me.
Right.
Because at this time I've been responsible for people, for the greater part of my career,
Exactly. Yeah.
responsible for equipment, and it was I was having fun with it, but at the same time, it was high stressed.
Right. Yeah.
So I didn't want that anymore. So pickleballs was perfect for me. It didn't work out. I didn't get to stay there until Social Security.
Right.
A couple of me and one of my battle buddies, we got laid off as tech because they were downsizing.
Right.
Uh, when I left Pitney Bowes, I didn't even collect any unemployment. I went straight to Lincoln Tech. I was still at Pitney Bowes when I got offered an instructor job at Lincoln Technical Institute.
Right.
So I took the job at Lincoln Tech. I was there for about 8 months, and I decided, look, this me and this younger generation, we're not going to get along. We're
All
not
right. Yeah.
we're not going to get along. So I
Oh, no.
decided
Okay.
there is my current situation. I don't have to I don't have to take the stress.
Right.
So I
Right. Right.
decided I'm going to wrap it up and take early Social Security. So
Right. Right.
that's what I'm doing right now. I am getting kind of bored, but
You
uh,
getting bored?
I keep telling myself, hey, I'm gonna ride it out until December, and then come January, if I'm still in the same frame of mind, I go find me. Hey, I'll be the guy I'll be the crossing guard guy. Kids going to school.
All right, the lollipop man.
Oh, I'll be the guy at Walmart. Say, hey, welcome to
Uh,
Walmart. Get in there and go buy some damn food. But right
you've got
now,
to that stage now.
yeah, yeah. So,
Yes,
that's what I'm doing right now. I get up in the morning, I
fabulous.
have my
Yeah,
cup of coffee. I go get in an hour and a half walk. I come back, throw a little bit of weights around the garage.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
by the time I'm finished with that, it's about, you know, 13, 1400.
Yeah,
Kind of
yeah.
sitting back, you know. I plant some damn flowers, put out some bird seeds, that
Yeah,
type of stuff.
you have a lot of birds in your garden and stuff. What is that about? Is that a hobby?
It is because I kind of, and that's me moving to the country.
Right,
When I moved to the
right,
country, I kind of develop a love for the outdoors.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
And it was, I never showed it, but when people would like go to them go aboard bush and shoot, but I'll
Yeah.
come
Yeah.
back. Yeah,
But
I'm
you
like,
do hummingbirds and stuff.
yeah, because I I love when they come by.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
So do you
so
actually? So you put out water and sugar and stuff for them.
I put out hummingbird feeders. I plant plants that are going to attract them. I this
Right.
year I put out three fountains. You know,
Okay.
so they
Okay.
come out,
Okay. Okay.
you know,
Okay.
take a sip. I kind of cut back on the bird feeder. I went from five to only two because I got black bears that pass by
Right.
and
You're a real
smoke.
countryman now, man.
Yeah, yeah. Smokey occasionally tears down the bird feeder.
Yeah. All right. Okay. 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 Fabulous.
Yeah.
Listen, Andrew, this has been a fascinating talk. Listening to your life growing up in Waterhouse, joining the JDF, migrating. Do you ever get back to Waterhouse?
No.
Not. Okay. All right.
Well,
And
the last time I was there was my brother was getting married. When my younger brother was getting married, that was the last
right.
time I was there. When we left, when we left, we only had on my dad's side of the family. We only had my grandfather and my grandmama on that side. So
We
when
never talked a
Papa,
lot about your mom. What was the story with your mom? Because you grew up with your grandmother. What had happened to your mom?
well, we never had that type of relationship.
All right. That's as simple as that. Okay, fine.
Yeah,
I'll
we
leave
never
it.
had that type of relationship.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So
Oh,
I'm going to try to wind this up now. And I have to ask you, of all the things that we've talked about, is there anything that I haven't that you wanted to talk about that you didn't get around to talking about?
well, we pretty much covered most of the things that we could have covered during the time frame. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah. There's some more stories, but they were just like the fun stories. And as far as the JD, you know, all of my buds that I used to hang out with, they know all these stories already. You know, so beside that,
Well, yeah, the
we
JDF,
pretty much,
there are lots of fun stories in the JDF.
yeah,
I have
yeah.
a few myself. Yes, I know. Okay. All right. Well, it's been fascinating talking to you and hearing your story, finally finding out why they call you about a gash. Um, Hearing about you disappearing from camp and nobody knows. And, it's just fascinating that that could ever happen. It never occurred to me that a soldier could go missing and
Hey,
nobody knew. Yeah, yeah,
it,
yeah.
it
So,
did, it did.
yeah. So I really am pleased that I've been able to get to have this conversation with you. We were in one jar at around the same time. Well, you joined a bit after me, but we served together, and some of the stories that you tell, I'm very familiar with them to a certain extent. Not exactly because I wasn't in Charlie Company, so I don't know those details. But it was really good catching up with with you. And what is going to happen now is that I'm going to sort of download this from YouTube and I'm going to send it on to Mr. JDF. And then on Sunday afternoon, he'll put it up. And then once that is finished, he'll ask you to come on and take questions. I can imagine that people have lots of questions that they would like to ask you. You might not think so, but there will be questions that people want to hear. You can tell me. So be prepared for that. And then we will always have this recording on YouTube so that you can always go there and listen. I'll send you a copy of it as well so you can listen to it, so you can know how it sounded. So thank you all very much, my friend. Thank you very much, sir. It has been a pleasure. And I'll catch up with you on the usual forum. For
All right,
those who
man.
don't, for those who
It's,
don't know, I see quite a bit of him on Facebook. So that's how I know about his hummingbirds and all his other little pursuits that he gets up to. So I'm going to stop the recording now and then sign off from here.
my pleasure, Major.
It was my pleasure.